This video is about my attempt to fix this InnoVision Mighty Banshee AGP graphics card. I got this card as a part of a bunch of untested cards from a private seller. I actually bought the lot because of that card. The green cooler is not the cooler the card came with. I removed the original heatsink and installed that one as a temporary solution for the duration of my fixing attempt. This green, regular pattern appears when the PC is cold started. The pattern disappears during the boot process. In Windows, everything looks fine at first, but when switching Windows back and forth, more glitches appear. But before we get to that, let's have a closer look at the pattern. I couldn't help but notice that these little rectangles take up 1/8 sections. Could this be related to the fact that the Banshee has 8 memory modules? I don't think this is coincidence. In Windows, when starting 3D Mark 2000, we can already see that the fade-in animation of the startup logo doesn't look right. The loading screen of the benchmark shouldn't be red either. In the benchmark we can see that dark areas have red artifacts. When I open Word, the Windows wallpaper appears to drop to 8-bit color depth. When I close Word, it returns to normal. We can clearly see that the things are not right with this card. To figure out what's wrong, I inspected both sides of the card. I couldn't see anything seriously wrong on the front side of the card. However, on the back side of the card, I could see that some fixes have been made by someone in the past. Let's have a closer look under the microscope. We can see that one trace has been repaired and that there are some scuffs and scratches in that section of the card. The repaired trace is exposed. That should be fixed with some solder mask later on. All traces that have even the slightest scratches have been checked carefully with a multimeter. They are all okay. Let's have a look at the front side of the card and focus our attention to the spot that is exactly on the other side of the repaired trace. The repaired trace sits right behind this memory chip. We can see that it is scuffed and scratched, so I focused my attention on that chip. I checked for solder bridges and checked every leg to pad connection with a multimeter. I couldn't find anything wrong. I also tried pressing down on it when powered on. The glitches remained. So I watched a couple of Voodoo repair videos, bought expensive equipment and became a professional solder expert within a few days. I'm just kidding, I have no idea what I'm doing. Ironically, the same thing was said in most of the videos I learned from. So do with that information whatever you want. Anyway, I loosely followed vSwitch Zero's Voodoo 3 memory replacement video. A little bit too loose, as we will see later. You can find a link in the video description below. I added some Kapton tape and went on to remove the chip with the air temperature set to 390 Celsius. After a hot minute, the chip went loose and was removed. I removed the old solder with plenty of flux and solder wick. And after removing the tape and cleaned everything with isopropanol, this is what I ended up with. I think it actually looks alright, but then I must have lost my mind and I started spreading flux on the pads with a cable tie and went on to put solder on the pads. With a soldering iron that was perhaps too hot. Around here I must have noticed that this was a totally dumb idea and that I effed up. Yes, these pads don't look good. Please make it stop. I don't have it on camera, but one pad detached and was never seen again. I went on to remove the solder and tried to damage control. So this is what I ended up with. I had to take the loss and order repair pads. They arrived 1 week later. It was not easy at all to remove the repair pads from the sticky substrate they came on. After I removed it, it was also bent. I used different kind of flux here, which didn't work very well. It was also very difficult for me to hold down the pad. These things are extremely small and I had trouble to adjust. This first attempt failed, but I didn't give up. So here's my second attempt. The light weight and the sticky mess around made it hard to position it. Then I tried to cut it to length. And I put it in the position where I wanted to have it. And it was gone again. I think it was also around that time when I started to notice that the flux that I used here is not the best flux. So I decided to give it a restart and clean everything and start with a third try. Another loose pad there, but it's still attached. Here I tried to remove the solder pad, the repair pad, more carefully, but it's impossible. And also I had some of the sticky substrate still attached to it. Try to position it again to the right place. It didn't take the solder, so I decided to add more flux. And then this happened. The pad became loose, and also the rest of the trace where I wanted to attach the repair pad was gone. So I decided again to clear everything up, wash with isopropanol, remove the old solder with solder wick. Now I have to expose some new trace to solder the repair pad to with the engraving tool. And this time I'm using the flux that I usually use and I know it's good. I lost count, but I think it's the third or fourth pad that I'm using. This time I tried to cut it on the substrate. It is bent again, but the length is more or less okay. I positioned it, hold it down with a toothpick and took a nice blob of solder. I carefully touched with the tip of the soldering iron and it was attached. After that I cleaned it with some isopropanol, and now I also know why some people wear gloves, because my fingers look gross under the microscope. Then I went on to remove whatever there was in that through hole, and I wanted to check the pad if it is conductive, and whoops! I almost ripped it off with the multimeter. Then I wanted to be perfect and cut off the little thing that was overhanging, but I thought, no, it's not important. In hindsight, I could have added some solder mask probably to the exposed contact so that it is a little bit more stabilized, but I was not thinking in it. I ordered the same chips as V-Switch Zeros used for the Voodoo 3 repair. I checked the data sheets and I didn't see why they wouldn't work also on the Banshee card. They are faster than the ones that were installed before, so I think that's fine. What you are witnessing now is my first experience soldering a chip with more than a few legs. I'm trying to attach the corners first, but again, I didn't use enough flux. I'm pinning down the chip with a toothpick while I'm doing all of this. I'm going to remove the bridges when I'm done with the soldering. After cleaning up and removing the bridges, I'm quite happy with how it looks. So now what is left is testing. Will it run, or will I have to replace more chips in the next videos? Here's the final product. What's left to do for now is plugging it back in and hope for the best. I went over all pins with a multimeter to check for bridges with neighboring pins and to check for continuity between pad and leg. All I hope for is that things didn't get worse. Fingers crossed. And what can I say? I'm happy to report there are no glitches. But sometimes I had this screen without glitches also when the error was still there. Especially when I did a warm start instead of a cold start. So let's see how it is in Windows. And the startup animation of 3D Mark 2000 looks good. Let's run a benchmark and see if the red glitches are there. Loading screen, black as it should be. And it was a success. Now what's left to do is run a longer benchmark, a longer test, and see if everything remains intact. I'm happy to report that my first repair was successful, and yeah, I'm very happy. I learned a lot, and I think the next one will be much smoother. I have another Banshee card, a PCI card from Creative Labs, also with SD memory, and I will see how that goes. The card doesn't start, it gives a few beeps in the beginning, so I guess I'm going to make another video about the next Banshee repair. Let's see if that one will be successful as well. Goodbye.